Hey there, my name is Jason Bradley. You may recognize my voice from such places as the Community Solutions Podcast, which, by the way, you're listening to now. Before we begin, can I bend your ear for just a moment? We want to bring you the very best in quality and information each week. You can help us achieve that level of greatness. If you sell something, want to announce something, or try to convince others to vote for you, consider advertising on the Community Solutions Podcast. You can email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we'd love to help you tell everyone about what you do. Once again, that's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Let us be your solution to increase sales. We thank you ahead of time for your consideration. Okay, enough yammering. On with the show. Here we come, better step aside. Here we come, we're coming at you live. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Another beautiful day in late summer Minnesota, and I am Jason Bradley. As always, my partner in crime, Mr. Andrew Richter.
Welcome back. Great to be here again for another episode here of our podcast. Always informing people of everything they need to know, no matter how bad or good it may be.
That's true. I can see that you survived the eclipse. Your retinas aren't burned out. You're looking at me. You look normal. That's good.
Huh? I can't see anything. What are you talking about? I never saw it.
No,
so it's okay.
Not up here we didn't. That's all right.
That's all right. I don't know who saw it. I don't know who claims they saw it. Whatever, it just, for some reason, that stuff just doesn't interest me. I don't know why.
Here's one thing that I can guarantee. If you saw the eclipse, your city is still taxing you blind. So
probably.
It's true. So that's why we're here. And we're going to take a break from cities today, and we're going to talk about the Wild West, as I like to call it, townships. A lot of people move out into townships to get a little space, see a little more freedom. They don't necessarily like the urban way of life. Some are more forested, some are more country, some are more... they're just out there, kind of in the middle of nowhere. When you're in the middle of nowhere, you're probably in a township. They cover the face of Minnesota, much like regional government does, but even more so because it's 100% covered by townships. If you're not in a city, well, that's not necessarily true either, because there are some unorganized areas like around Red Lake.
It's a 99 out of 100.
It's true.
You just can't escape. Property taxes, you can't escape. Like you said, regional government, it's hard to escape all that stuff.
It's true. So, I know growing up in the Duluth area for me, I'm familiar with townships. I had friends that lived out in the townships. I drove out in the townships. What are they? What have they become? What are the future? We're going to talk a little bit about townships today because it takes up a bunch of the land mass in Minnesota, and population-wise, some of them are bigger than the cities that are around them. So
yeah, I would say townships are one of the most non-talked about things you can possibly think of here when we talk about local government. And the amazing thing is, there are more townships in Minnesota than cities, school districts, and counties combined. 1,790. Now that is a lot of townships. Now, it covers a lot of land mass, but the majority of people in Minnesota live in suburbs, not cities, or big or urban areas, right, as the planners would define them. But townships actually are how we originally governed ourselves. A lot of people don't know that, but the Northwest Ordinance is actually where townships come. Of course, we were a territory then.
Yes.
We had a territorial government back in those days. before we applied for statehood. And a township, now is governed under state statute, under the Minnesota Constitution.
As are all great things.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Constitution, of course, gives us our rights, and it's living and breathing and needs to be changed and burped and all that stuff. But their powers and their governing are directly out of Minnesota state statutes today.
Right.
Do they operate like cities? The answer is yes and no. And I just want to say something here. Jay and I, we're going to give you kind of a 30,000-foot view of townships. In a future podcast, we'll go into a lot more in depth on exactly what they do. Maybe we'll dissect a few budgets, compare townships in one end of the state to the other. We just want to give you a 30,000-foot view of a township because a lot of these positions are elected. Most of them are, actually.
Right.
The services vary very much. So that's very V-A-R-Y and then very much V-E-R-Y. It's very, very much.
Oh, boy. My head is beginning to spin.
Some of them actually hold elections in the spring. They have the option to hold elections in March, actually, because according to they have different ways they can set up different options, just like cities do. And state statute gives them that flexibility. A lot of the bigger ones have gone to regular November elections. You'd see that on the Secretary of State's page. A lot of these people run unopposed.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of... I haven't heard about many township elections. They can be elected annually. They can be elected to 3-year terms, 4-year terms. Again, it depends on how you are set up. Some of them do have the ability to assess. Some of them don't. So that's another thing, just to know that they do have some of those things. Most of them are made up of what's called a 5-person board. That's a chair, 2 supervisors, and then a clerk and a treasurer. The clerk and the treasurer are often non-voting. They're more doing a job. They're not elected as an equal, say, like a city council person would be. So a lot of them are governed by 3 people.
Okay.
So, again, that varies a bit. Very, very.
Yes.
V-A-R-I-E-S. It varies from township to township. Now, it does amaze me, though, that people think of townships, they think of the middle of nowhere, 200 miles north.
There's not always the case.
There's townships in Aiken County.
Yeah.
There's townships in Wright County.
There are townships here in the metro.
Yeah, there are. Absolutely.
White Bear Lake Township. That is right there with White Bear Lake. I mean, it's kind of...
You go down south of Rosemount on 52, it's all townships down there.
Oh, yeah.
All the way down to Cannon Falls.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're not something that's just, in the middle of nowhere where, there's nothing but antelope and deer and squirrels, and there's more of those than there are people. Well, it's not always the case. I mean... actually, some of them have the ability to actually hire a town administrator, which I would think would be like a city manager.
Right.
But most of them don't do that. Most of them either aren't big enough or don't have the budget or whatever you want to call it. Interesting that they are subject to regional government, county government. Sometimes they're at the mercy of the nearest big city.
Okay.
Because of it depends on how services are divided.
Right.
Townships don't... Let me just back up a minute. A township won't have a police department. Okay, chances are it's either the sheriff's office that is providing the police protection. Yeah. They may have an office there or in the nearest big city. Or it is the nearest big city that has some sort of reciprocal agreement that says they can do that. But you and I both know big cities are trying to swallow up townships.
Absolutely. Cities have, by Minnesota statute, the ability to put into their comprehensive plan the ability to orderly annex a township where they see value, where they want to maybe put a business corridor, or whether the population has grown to such that they could get a big chunk of tax dollars. There's something valuable in the area that city can kind of take and call their own. I know I wrote an article a while back called I Claim This Land in the Name of Duluth, and not Sir Griceland Duluth, who explored and founded. He didn't really found the city, but they named the city after him. Instead, it was the city of Duluth who was trying to annex Rice Lake Township against their will. And that happens all over, though. I mean, we've looked in Grand Rapids comp plans, and there's annexation plans. We've looked in Hutchinson's, and there's annexation plans. We've looked in Rochester's, there's annexation plans. This is not something that is isolated to one or two cities. If you have townships around your city has an annexation plan. Big Lake has an annexation plan for Big Lake Township and the other townships around it.
Huh. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, let's think about that for a minute. No, could there be? I mean, we all know what a comp plan is supposed to be.
Right.
Okay, it's supposed to deal in possibility, not act as like what I call it. It acts like a Bible.
Right.
If it's in the comp plan, then steps are being made to follow through on that in most cases.
Yeah.
So what would be the motive of a city to take over a township? I mean, what would be is the case that the services are spread too thin? Because we all know what happens when the city takes over. Mm-hmm. City takes over, they restrict the lot size.
Yep.
They demand that you be on city utilities.
Yep.
They won't hand out a building permit.
Sewer and all of that.
All of that crap. What is the benefit of the city to do that? I mean, if I'm in Big Lake, most people there don't want the city to grow 5 times in population.
Right.
They want to keep it the way it is. So what's Big Lake's motivation to go out and, as we call it, annex?
Right.
And we all know what that means. Then they're going to have to connect to the rest of the city. That part of the city is going to need a strip mall and a gas station and a bar and a place that sells nudie magazines or whatever. I mean, you're turning it into everything into an urban area, aren't you?
Well, yeah, and they haven't done it yet in Big Lake. The plans are there that they can do it if they need to, because they haven't been able to extract the value out of that area yet. Whereas,
so they're waiting for it to get big enough.
Well, up again in the Duluth area, you have Midway Township, which is right along where Midway Road meets I-35, just south of Duluth. You have really 3 cities in that area right there. You have Duluth, which is kind of the monster, and then you've got Proctor, and then you've got Hermantown. We won't include Superior. They're Wisconsin. If we can start annexing Wisconsin, I don't know what we're.
Believe me,
at,
Wisconsin does not want to be annexed by Minnesota.
No, it does not. So, and there are other cities around there, Cloquet, but for the discussion we're having, in the Midway Township, there's a strip of land along I-35. It has been undeveloped for a long time, or underdeveloped. There has been a gas station with a liquor store. There has been a couple motels. There, a restaurant, like a country kitchen type restaurant. Then there was nothing on the other side. Well, Proctor a couple of times has gone and tried to annex part of Midway Township.
Really? Your hometown?
Yeah, right along where I-35 is, because they wanted to develop it and put in whatever, restaurants or whatever right along I-35, because they figure people will stop before they go into Duluth.
But let me ask this.
Yeah.
Why can't the township put in a restaurant if that's what they choose to do?
Because the city's limit what the townships can do in their comp plans. Don't ask me how, but I mean, obviously they're allowed to. Where
or
they
the
say,
county or St. Louis County would come in and...
Well, the cities are the ones that do this in their comp plans. They say commercial businesses can't exist in the townships.
So is that what makes it not a township anymore? Is it township?
No, I mean a township is a township because it's not incorporated as a city.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You know, legally you have to incorporate as a city.
Yes.
And
through state statute.
Yep, and the state has to approve it. There's a whole process. In fact, with Rice Lake, that's what they tried to do, is to become a city to stop Duluth from annexing it. Well, here in Midway Township, because they're not allowed really to build on that land, and they didn't, for some reason, they didn't want Proctor to annex it, so they went to Duluth, which I don't understand. Why would you go to a bigger, more ruthless city that has killed a population and jobs and ask them to take that from you? And now there's a McDonald's and there's a gas station, and
they got follow the money.
Yeah,
they got bought off. They got free stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're part of Duluth's services now. Yeah, and that's probably what happened. I mean, but I mean, that's a big worry that these townships are just going to get eaten by the nearest monster.
Right, and for a township, I mean, you don't move to a township because you want city amenities. you move to a township because you don't. You want some freedom, you want some room, you want to be able to chop wood and keep a pile of wood and have a fireplace and have 5 acres to run your ATV on, and you want those things, and that's why you move to a township. You know, like you said, bigger lot sizes. You know,
land to hunt on.
Right, land to hunt on. You're not going to have anybody managing your height of your fence, or the inset of your fence from lot lines. You're not going to have a fence because you have 30 million trees or 40 acres of field or whatever. So you move out there because you don't want the thumb of government oppressing you the way that you do in a city, and those are people that are willing to drive in and work and then drive home. But yeah,
they're retired or whatever.
The city really does limit what a township is allowed to put out in the township. Now, I'm sure you can have gas stations, you can have this and that, but you can't get into like commercial development, where you're starting to put up strip malls and all that kind of stuff. And the reason is the city doesn't want to lose out to the township on tax dollars.
So a restaurant can't be in a township?
I'm a little
station?
Fuzzy on exactly how that breaks down.
Maybe it's grandfathered in or something.
Because if you go into, again, coming out of Duluth, and you go on Highway 2 towards Grand Rapids, you get out, and I'm trying to remember exactly how that breaks down. It's not quite, I think it's the Adolph Township right there, which is kind of nestled in between Hermantown and Midway Township and Solway Township. And this little area, it does have a gas station and a restaurant in it. So I think there's limited development that you can have.
Maybe a one-off you can have or something.
But yeah, they do really frown upon, they have density requirements for population, and B, as far as commercial requirements, what can or cannot exist in a township.
So the townships in some ways are at the mercy of the cities around them. They are independent under the law, but they also
right. And if you look at an organization like League of Minnesota Cities, they have a whole set of things that they are lobbying for that are good for cities and bad for townships.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, God, they're a terrible organization. And just to back up a second, I mean, the biggest expense that I see among, by the way, budgetary information is not easy to get.
No, it's not.
The state auditor's office doesn't do a very good job in making this stuff easy to get either.
Well, there are different auditing requirements. You don't have to have an audit. Like if your township is below a certain size, either population or
square miles. Or
let me think. It's either population or the amount of money. The
budget's not big enough.
Yeah, it's like below 900 some thousand.
But we all know that's manipulatable.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of their debt spending.
Yeah, well, and also if you're sharing services, you're maybe paying into something, but. You're sharing services
only
with a bigger city, and so there's all that. But also, I mean, when you're looking at the budgetary end of it, I mean, their townships generally aren't held to the same kind of levy limits. The township sets the levy limits, which is kind of interesting because that's what we were talking about a couple podcasts ago. Was what shouldn't a city just be able to set its own levy and then vote on it? When it sounds like that's kind of what they do. Right,
but I think it's a quasi of what we're talking about.
Right.
I think that the residents should be able to set the levy limits.
Right.
And then anytime that limit wants to go up, the burden is on the government to make that case, not on the residents. The way it's set up now is, yes, they can do that, but other than voting new people out 4 years from now, you don't really have any recourse if they want to jack something up. So it's kind of a quasi thing there. They do get state and local grants.
Yeah,
they are eligible for that. They do get license and permit fees. It's not like a city, but it does exist.
Yeah,
they do charge for services. They're eligible for federal grants too. Most of the state aid is not there anymore. That was there at one time, but that's really not. Money really doesn't go like LGA going to townships. That really doesn't exist.
Right.
But, and where they spend, their largest expense, believe it or not, is roads.
Oh, yeah.
From what I hear, that's their largest expense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have roads that are probably not repaired as often as city roads are. Yeah. I mean, they're less used, though, too, for the most part.
They definitely are. I think that you probably have fewer of them. You don't have city streets in a township.
Right.
You have a lot of county roads. You have maybe an interstate or two, maybe a state highway. It probably isn't quite the need, but it doesn't look like, the point is it doesn't look like a city budget where police and fire are kind of number 1 and 2 in a lot of cities. Streets, things like that kind of follow. Because of the joint agreements with either the local sheriff's office or the local big city, you won't see police as a third of their budget or 40% of their budget that you may see here in the cities.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to name the township just for personal reasons. We're gonna keep some security here, but where my mom was living up north. We'll just put it's a township up north. There was a lot of gravel roads. It's a lot of farmland. It's a lot of gravel roads. There's still maintenance with those because plowing. Yeah, you've got to look at plowing. You've got to look at. A lot of times they'll come and put something over it so it's not so dusty. Maybe once in the spring. They used to use oil, and I don't know what they use now because oil's not a good idea.
I'm guessing it's not that anymore.
But you've also got to dump loads of gravel sometimes on a road because it gets thin, starts getting muddy. They have to grade it, so they run the graders. So and I would imagine then that they're buying gravel from a company and probably not managing, a gravel pit somewhere. But there are lots of roads. Road costs.
And I know that happens up in northern Minnesota, like where my family's cabin is, which is Itasca County. And I think Itasca County is a partner in some of those. I'm not sure what township our family cabins in. Wabana, it might be. Wabana Township by Wabana Lake there. But I think they do the main roads, which some of them are state highways, some of them are county roads. I do think there's a shared service within that. But yeah, it is. First off, it's not easy to discern that. It's pretty non-transparent, if you ask me. That's just what I can say about it. And townships actually control, if this is to be believed, I'm getting this from mntownships.org, okay. They actually control 47% of the roads in Minnesota.
Wow.
Do you believe that?
I do. Because
in miles? Possibly.
Absolutely, because they span so much of the state. Cities really don't take up the bulk of the landmass in the state. Yeah, and
landmass, no doubt about it. I mean, some townships are believe it or not, into park and rec, which is usually partnering with a county, but to me, if you're into park and rec, you're not quite a township.
No, you live in a big park.
No kidding. What do you need a park and rec program for? Some of them do have their own volunteer fire departments.
Yes, I believe Rice Lake does.
Really? And I would say that there still is an expense with that. Even if the people are volunteer, there's still a liability expense.
Maintenance of equipment.
Capital funds. I mean, there still is. And I'm sure there's something worked out with someplace near there that people have to be trained. Even if they're not being paid, they can't just be thrown out there. Mm-hmm. So there is an expense, I'm sure, that goes with that also. But townships, you just wonder. I've said this before, that there is a war going on against rural America.
Yes.
I mean, I believe that there is an effort. It's all coincides with the effort to get you out of your car, the effort to get you in the Twin Cities, trying to take the sub out of suburban. Mm-hmm. And I think townships are, I don't know, they're sort of, what do you think? You think they're kind of going to go by the wayside at some point, or are they dying a slow death? I mean, do we have townships?
It depends.
Who do we have in office in those townships that are going to fight to keep their way of life? I mean,
I think that they might. People that are elected to township boards, I mean, they're not perfect, and I'm sure that they do things within their townships that are less than great, just like people who live in cities. But I would like to believe they fight for those cities for the townships for the most part, because they live there, they moved there for a reason. Now, you're gonna have people like in Midway that decide, well, we're gonna sell this strip of land to Duluth.
The hell are they thinking?
I don't know, but it's just. I don't know what the future of townships are. I believe that the people that live out there, though, don't want to become part of a city, and that they will fight tooth and nail as much as Minnesota statute allows them to not be annexed. Although they only have limited power with that, and so by becoming a city, how does that tie their hands in other manners?
So there's a two-way problem. You've got statutes that you and I both know the League of Minnesota Cities is trying to change. Yeah. On the one hand, in St. Paul, and with that you have townships where I've been studying on the Secretary of State's page some of these elections in past time. Yeah. There's about 50 townships in Minnesota that start with the letter A. By the way,
yeah,
a lot, maybe even more than that.
There might be.
I'm not seeing much. People are running unopposed. People are either they're really happy, and then I think you also have the other thing of people having second homes in a township. They've got a place.
Oh, that's true.
But they're not voting there.
Right, a lot of cabins are out in
Right.
townships, hunting shacks.
Maybe
like
somebody
that.
has a business up there, but they don't live there.
Right.
Or they're invested in something. I mean, do you run into that problem where the people who own the land aren't able to vote for who?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If I bought a cabin 200 miles away, I can't vote there.
Yeah.
So it's not my primary residence.
Yeah. Although, if the people that are buying cabins are from the cities, you guys really don't want them voting there anyways.
Well, it depends.
Yeah, dodged a bullet.
Some people are in the cities not by choice, but by necessity.
That's true.
So
that is true.
I hear you there. But it's just a kind of thing where with what I believe we're headed toward, which is the effort to get everybody into some sort of city or in some sort of box, and restrict where you can live or where you can do anything. These townships, I mean, are we going to have 1,000 townships in 20 years instead of 1,700?
Well, I don't think so. I mean,
are they going to have to band with other townships to fight?
Who knows? Well, the size of the township really doesn't protect them, though. It is basically Minnesota statute that protects or leaves them open to be annexed by a city, and a city doesn't have to annex a whole township. They can annex half of it, they can annex a third of it, the part that they want, and leave the rest. So they take the best part for themselves and leave the township with what's left over, which is amazing to me. So as far as the future of townships go, I mean, I don't see them going away, obviously, because to say that Minnesota is someday going to be 100% covered with cities, it's not going to happen.
No, there's too much land preserved. There's Indian reservations. There's there's environmental concerns and things like that. I don't see that happening either. What I do see, though, is the lobbying to get rid of a township's independence, and the pressure to find a justification for annexing or and it's a slow death. It's the
right.
It's not going to happen tomorrow, but you know how governments plan 20, 30 years out in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, if you talk about the year 2040, which everybody keeps talking about, with at least in the cities,
right,
certainly, I mean, and especially as the growth of the outer suburbs, I mean, like you said, there's townships here in the 7-county metro. I mean, are they on a deathbed? And we've seen cities combine, like Norwood and Young America have combined. And I mean, are we going to see more of that? Or are we going to see townships stay in cities not near Duluth,
right,
but are cities like Alexandria or Park Rapids or Grand Rapids or Mankato, these bigger Little Falls, the bigger towns in greater Minnesota, are they going to start eating up what they can eat up?
I think it depends. I mean, you have a place like way up in northwestern Minnesota, like Percy Township, that has 31 people in it. I think they're probably pretty safe. I think that you have 31 people there. There's not a lot worth taking. There's not a lot worth annexing. However, you go into a place like not Monticello City, but Monticello Township, where they have 3,181 people, and it's right next to Monticello,
right, which is an area that's exploded in the last 20 years. Monticello in the 1980s consisted of 4 horses and 3 cows.
Right.
Now it's a suburb of Minneapolis almost.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at, like, out in that area, Buffalo is probably the biggest city with
in Wright County,
15,453 people at the last census. But Buffalo Township is sitting at 1,804 people, so that's still a pretty sizable grouping of people, and they could come and
so
take part of that.
Is Buffalo Township surround Buffalo, or is that east or west or north? It's like if you go out to Buffalo, like on 55,
right?
Okay, you go through Rockford and you go through. I mean, you can go the other way through Delano, but I mean, if you're going there, when are you in Buffalo Township?
That's a great question. A lot of townships are set up, not all of them, but a lot of them are set up as squares. Because originally the original way that we governed in Minnesota was to set up townships, and they were 36 square miles. So that's what a lot of these townships are or were these 36 square miles. Now with annexations, with creation of new townships, whatever, you have some they don't fit that 36 square mile way of doing it. As far as Buffalo Township goes, my guess is it wouldn't surround it. In fact, just looking now, it is kind of west and north, on east side and the north side of Buffalo. So it doesn't really surround it. It looks like it was a square, 36 square mile square, right? And then Buffalo came and took a bite out of the southwest corner of it.
So that's the part by like Pulaski or something that exploded into a town. They incorporated into a town,
right,
and then grew after that.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Buffalo Township is going to be, in 20 years. I wonder what their comprehensive plan says. We're going to. Not that I want you to look. I'm just saying. that I can see a scenario in. Not so much the 7-county metro, but maybe the extra counties around, Wright County, Sherburne County, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Those townships are all just going to get eaten in the next 20 years or so.
Well, it's funny because
they're not all going to get eaten because there's too much farmland and there's too much.
Right.
There's a lot of lakes and creeks and ponds and that'll never be developed, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But my guess is anything along, Highway 55 or Highway 7 or is somehow going to get chewed up.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it's not often like neat and orderly. You'll see the boundaries when a city comes in to do that it's very, they're jagged lines. They don't always make a lot of sense because they're taking little acres here and an acre there, and so, yeah, it kind of looks like somebody took a bite out of it, which, it's funny that you say eat them up, but I mean, that's kind of how it looks. As far as Buffalo goes, I mean, not so, it's funny. I mean, I haven't even looked at the comp plan, but right on Buffalo City's website, I mean, they have a question that states, can my property be annexed by the city?
Don't click on it. I don't want to know the answer.
I think you're safe in Plymouth.
Yeah, but we went through the same thing out in Hutchinson, where they have townships right around them, and they even have smaller cities that are not that far away, Glencoe, Silver Lake, and some others, and there's townships in between, and their comp plan literally says that their plan is to chew up. And it may happen, it may not happen, but my guess is if it's in their comp plan, something's been set in motion to make that a reality.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody in the planning department has got something in their drawer that's a justification, if you will, for eating them up.
Yeah.
They haven't found the right time or the right landowner or the right development or they haven't found they're looking for an excuse to do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I want to go to war with this country, so I'm going to burn the rights tag or something and make it happen.
Right.
I mean, do you think that's going on? That there's not burning the rights tag, but I mean that there's somewhere there's a plan being hatched to someday do that. Or am I out in left center again?
Mr. Richter, you are a conspiracy theorist. He's been called that more than once.
I read government documents and I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. No, it's hard to say. I mean, they put these things in their plans. They allow for the orderly annexation based on certain boundaries that they set in their comp plans. Whether there is some sort of conspiracy out in the open to grab all this land, I don't think so. I think that they have to make weigh financial decisions and see if it makes sense.
But we all know what government does.
Right.
They make the plans first, then they sell them to us later.
Right.
So if in 2020 comes along, and all of a sudden there's a plan for Buffalo to annex Buffalo Township, or part of it, how long do you think that they've been thinking about it?
Oh, for a while.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that somebody somewhere is going, okay, we might want this someday.
Yeah.
How do we get it? Or what's our legal justification to go do it?
I think right now a lot of that stuff is listed in the comprehensive plans because people don't read them. I think the second that people start reading the comprehensive plans and are aware of what's going on, they'll find another way to list their plans out, in a way where people aren't looking there. I think that's I think long term that is how it might work. So, but as far as how conspiratorial it is, I mean, at the moment, I think it's all pretty clear out in the open. I don't think they have drawers with plans stashed in them.
I don't know. I'm a skeptic on that.
They're all out on Dropbox somewhere.
maybe not. But when you're making a comp plan, part of what you're doing is envisioning the future of the city. Whether we think that that's good or bad, what they have planned, a lot of them involve, especially in a place like a Buffalo or Monticello we're picking on, but that's because they're an area that 30 years ago had a quarter of the population they have now.
Right.
So what if they're anticipating a population growth, which they always do. They always predict growth, no matter where they are. Mm-hmm. Minneapolis has 130,000 fewer residents than it had in 1950, and they still project growth.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's kind of moot, but they use the growth as the reason why they have to do something.
Right.
And my guess is that they, and again, I guess I can't prove this with, completely, but I think they are cooking up some sort of way to, okay, if A happens and then B happens, the problem is you won't find out about it till F happens.
Right. They have immediate plans and they have long range plans, and it is possible they in the back of their head they're thinking someday, but it's going to take, I think, a long time to get there. And I think if townships can organize now and try to get, I hate to say lobbying power, because you think of a group like the Minnesota Townships.
Well, they do. The problem with those organizations is what they want is free money.
Right.
And that's the exact wrong reason to do something.
Yeah.
They should be lobbying for their independence.
Right.
Not for the second they get free money, they're dependent.
Yeah.
Not independent.
Right.
So I think, an organization exists, but What are they lobbying for? And who knows? Who knows the ultimate motives? Who knows who's serving on these lobbying committees and where they're coming from and all that kind of stuff? We've talked about that with the League of Minnesota Cities before. You got mayors and city council people taking an oath to serve a city, but yet they're on a board that is a conflict of where they are.
Exactly. And, somebody taking a buck to sell out somebody else, it wouldn't be the first time it happened in history.
Maybe the third, but...
But yeah, I mean, you've got groups like Minnesota Association of Townships, and they don't do what's best necessarily for the township.
And I'm sure they're not funded like the League of Minnesota Cities or Association of Counties or anything like that. And unfortunately, you look at all these townships, there's like one representative at the state level for like 11 townships. Yeah. I mean, it can be, you can have very few advocates in St. Paul. It does not surprise me, especially as the Twin Cities keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the problems in Minneapolis are now in St. Cloud. It's. I think it can be something. I mean, I hope you're right. I hope they maintain their independence, and I think some of them will, no matter what. But the ones I worry about are the ones closer to a bigger city and that are in growing areas. I think it's going to be hard for somebody who bought a place in Maple Plain Township 30 years ago. They're having trouble keeping their way of life. I think they're going to find it difficult.
Yeah, and that's very possible. It just depends how greedy, the cities get, and it depends. And we all know out in Greater Minnesota, they're having trouble keeping people out in Greater Minnesota. So what does that mean? Do the cities try to grow so that they can keep people out there? I mean, they are trying, but what does that then mean for the townships? And if they're successful, and will they really be successful? We don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the small towns. I just think that some people think they're dying a slow death, and I don't know that they are or not. I think there's too much government work out there. I think they haven't put in the private sector. Business climate isn't what it could be. I think there's too many regulations, too many restrictions, too many taxes. Maybe the job base isn't what it needs to be, education, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes into something like that. Like you look at northern Minnesota, the mining, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how are those towns supposed to survive when their main industry has been declared off limits?
Yeah.
I mean, there's lumber companies that have been put out of business. There's, and that was the way of life for generations up there. There's a lot of fishing restrictions that have put resorts out of business, and have put fishing guides and things like that have had. Back in the day, there were dock builders.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. You need to be insured. You need to be bonded. You need to get permits. I mean, it's a case where the very people that are trying to save small towns or greater Minnesota have been a lot of the ones that have contributed to its death or its cancer or whatever you want to call it, right?
Right.
So it's kind of...
Well, and a lot of those people, though, could care less if people live there and work there. In fact, they would like it better if it were just wild.
Yeah. There is a point to be made there.
Yeah.
Well...
We could go on and on about it.
And we will in a future episode. We'll dive into this more. We just want people to be aware. 1,790 townships. A lot of them have 3 to 5 elected positions. Doesn't take much. It can take 50 votes.
Yeah.
I mean, just think that's 5,000 spots statewide.
Absolutely.
Like I said, there's more cities, There's more townships than there are cities, counties, and school districts combined.
Yep, and we tend to put all of our eggs in one basket. We talk about cities and we focus on cities, and those are population centers. That's right that we do that. Yep. But there is this whole other world out there that you need to be aware of. And a lot of you that listen to us may be in a township. If you are in a township,
or next to one.
Yeah, or next to one.
Very could well be if you're in Big Lake or Monticello or Buffalo.
I'm going to throw out the same invitation to you that I tell everybody else. You see things going on in your township. You see a city coming after you, wanting to annex part of your township. Let us know. We'll let the world know. Tell us. We will tell the world. You get a hold of us, and if you want to figure out how to get onto your township board, your city council, you want to run for something, you want to just help out in some capacity, get a hold of us. Email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Otherwise, keep an eye on our blog. Spread the word, please. Let other people know about commsolutionsmn.com. And this is where our podcasts are, our articles. We've written some about townships. There will be more coming, I promise you that. So get a hold of us. Let people know about us. We appreciate you so much. And it's just a matter of time, Minnesota, once we start to devote ourselves to taking back what is rightfully ours and telling career politicians and special interests that they don't run Minnesota, we do, we're going to start to see the tide change. And I'm excited about that. What about you, Andrew?
I just can't sleep at night. I'm so excited.
Is that the tacos, or is that your excitement?
It's a combination of the two. It depends on the onions I had with them.
It's all good. All right, Minnesota, we thank you very much. This has been the Minnesota talk show thing that we like to call Community Solutions Podcast. You come back again in a week and we'll have a new one for you. Thank you. Good night.